Nashville Predators lost game one, but how much do they actually need to change going into tonight's game two? We'll talk about it on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys and appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio. Normally I have a partner in crime, but Ann Kimmel has the day off. On today's show, the Nashville Predators are getting ready to take on the Vancouver Canucks in Game 2 tonight in the Great Pacific Northwest. We'll have keys to that game coming up here in just a little bit, plus a look at how much the Predators actually need to change going into tonight's game after their loss. We'll hear from some of the team about their performance and what they want to do next. We'll also look at the playoffs as a whole and look at some of the early surprises from around the NHL, especially the Western Conference, all coming up on today's show. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, you can tell it's playoff season. We are in full swing, and we know that because Canucks fans and Predators fans are already feuding on Twitter over the dumbest possible things. A certain segment of Preds fans are unhappy that Vancouver fans are happy the playoffs are back. Vancouver fans chirping back with your team doesn't have fans or banners or whatever. The dumbest possible Twitter feuds. That's how you know the playoffs are here. That's how you know the rivalry is kicking off in a full swing when we get on Twitter fights for the dumbest possible things. I will say, though, for all of you, I know a lot of Canucks fans have been tuning into these shows since the series started, have been interacting with us on YouTube and Twitter. I got to say, everybody who's tuned in, everybody who's interacted with us, you guys have been awesome. And we said it throughout the beginning. I personally love watching the Vancouver Canucks play. They have a great young team, a fun young team. And for what it's worth, I also really love seeing the passion from Canucks fans in game one. I thought that pregame scene, where the fans were just losing their minds as the team came out of the ice, that gave me goosebumps, and I was cheering for the other team. I really love seeing that passion, and I know that random people have been complaining about it online, including a couple prominent writers. But seeing Canucks fans spill out on the streets and holding up signs and holding up flags and chanting when who cares? It was game one of the first round of the playoffs. I don't care. That was still a cool thing to see, and I love the passion Canucks fans are bringing to this series early. It makes it that much more fun when you go against a fan base that really wants it, that you can tell really cares about this. Because, the one thing I can say about Nashville is when the Predators are a juggernaut, when there's a really good team for Predators fans to get behind, it's the same way. And you can feel like Vancouver fans feel like there's something special going on with this year's team, that they finally have the right mix of a young core and proven depth players and decent veterans to help them get to a Stanley Cup. The buzz is there, and I love that about what Vancouver has shown in terms of fan support early in the series. So if you're tuning into this podcast and you're one of those, keep it up. I don't wish you good luck, as I would like the Preds to win this series. But just from a fan standpoint, from a lover of hockey, from a lover of hockey passion, I love seeing that. And I would love for Vancouver to keep that up. Let's move on to the game at hand. So when we look at game one, from a Nashville Predators standpoint, other than the 12 seconds of hell, there was a lot to like about this matchup. You outshot Vancouver by 1. It was 22-21 in shots, which that's not a stat line you're used to seeing in playoff hockey that much. You had, more chances. You had more high danger chances. There's really not much to complain about if you're a Nashville Predators fans, other than the 12 seconds of hell that kind of just tanked the second half of your game late in the game. As soon as the Canucks scored that second goal to make it 2-2, we know what happened 12 seconds later, but you could just feel the momentum getting sucked out from Nashville Predators, and that crowd got louder. That crowd got into it. The Canucks players fed into that a little bit more. That's kind of been the Nashville Predators' Achilles heel at times over the past 4 years. Was something goes wrong and they go into panic mode. They sort of lose that intensity. They sort of lose that fight and they kind of kick into survival mode a little bit. And that seems like that's what happened in game 1, because overall, I thought the Predators played very well. I think they have overcome this sort of question marks over, can they match the Canucks speed? Can they match the Canucks depth? Which was a big question, because I think the Canucks are one of the deeper teams in the NHL. And I think the Preds did a lot that showed they can match up with the Canucks. And, a lot of people are obviously Vancouver's a heavy favorite, but I think Nashville proved what a lot of people thought was this series is going to be closer than I think a lot of people think. This is a tough first round matchup for Vancouver. And on the stats on the paper, Nashville has kind of hung with Vancouver in a lot of key stats. They're up there in scoring. They're up there in defense. So I think, Nashville kind of proved what you needed to prove. And that's tough because you still lost the game. So what do you do next if you're the Nashville Predators? Are you happy with where your game is at? We talked with Andrew Brunette and Ryan McDonagh about that yesterday morning during morning skate. And here's what they had to say about where their team is right now and how do they build off of some of the positives from game 1.
For the most part, it was a really close hockey game. It was an emotional game. It was physical, had all the makings of a great hockey game. We just, had about 12 seconds there where we let the foot off the gas a little bit and couldn't get to our game after that. So,
whether we liked the way we were playing or not, we still had a chance to win that game, and we're in a good spot. And like I said, they kind of rose up there and had the momentum going and capitalized on us a couple times quick, and that's where we need to respond and understand where we're at in the game. And it doesn't have to be pretty, but the desperation and the execution and the will to get it done has to come through.
As Ryan McDonagh kind of hinted, you don't need a drastic overchange. You just need to fix a couple of things there, especially late in the game when we talk about that big collapse in the third period. That's going to be sort of the key to this game, is being able to build off of what you've already done. And as some players pointed out, the Canucks probably feel like there's a lot left on the table for them to accomplish as well. And so they're going to be looking at tweaking a few things. They're going to be looking at trying to fix their intensity. So for the Nashville Predators, it's, can you make those adjustments maybe a little bit quicker than the Canucks can? So what do the Nashville Predators need to do for game 2? First off, Luke Schenn, two-time Stanley Cup winner, somebody who has played in Vancouver before as a member of the Canucks, kind of helped revitalize his career a little bit. He knows this team well. He knows what it takes to have a playoff mindset. He knows what it takes to get deep in the playoffs. Here's what he has to say is next for the Nashville Predators.
Whether you win a game or lose a game, it's kind of on to the next game. If, that's kind of the one thing I've learned over the experience. It can be a roller coaster if you let it be, but if not, that's why you have a great coaching staff, and you go over video and you kind of almost dumb the game down a little bit of, certain situations or plays, things that you like or you don't like, and, guys within the room just kind of keep things level-headed. If you, I'm sure Vancouver's feeling great about themselves, but they're also probably talking about the next one. We lose the first game, we're talking about the next one. So it's just kind of, leaning on that experience as far as, next day approach. And, there's obviously a lot of things that, like I said, we can tighten up a little bit, but just not get too emotional either way, which other side you end up on it.
You always have to make sure you have short memories in the postseason. For the Nashville Predators, it's going to be tough because, as many people have pointed out, 0-13 in playoff series all time when they lose game one. So this is why you brought in players like Luke Schenn. This is why you brought in players like Ryan O'Reilly, Ryan McDonagh, who have won cups before. You brought them in because they know how to deal with adversity like the Predators are dealing with right now. And I will say, this is as close to as must-win game as you can, because the Nashville Predators, it's certainly not over by any means, but you don't want to drop these 2 games in Vancouver and then have to win 4 of 6. You would really like to go ahead and split the series and steal one from Vancouver if you can. That's going to be the key for the Nashville Predators tonight. So what are some other keys for the Nashville Predators to make that happen? What do they need to do on the ice? We'll talk about that coming up in just 1 second. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Folks, it is the playoffs for both hockey. It is the playoffs for basketball. We got baseball in full swing. There is a lot of good sports action happening right now. And if you want to get on the action, there's no better place to get tickets than Game Time. Game Time has last-minute deals, all-in prices that show you your total up front, so you know you're getting the best deal. They show you your view from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrived. Game Time is simply the app that takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have plenty of last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute deals for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and much more. They have the lowest price guarantee. If you find tickets in the same row and section for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time has their Game Time ticket coverage, which means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, it's not just hockey playoffs happening this week. It is draft week in the NFL, and the Locked On NFL mock draft is now online. You can find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local experts are picking for every NFL franchise. We have live reactions from local college football experts, even the fantasy football angle. So don't take my word for it. Listen to the Locked On NFL experts and listen to the Locked On NFL mock draft. It's available now on Locked On, the NFL channel. It's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from. All right. Nashville Predators take on the Vancouver Canucks tonight in the Pacific Northwest, Game 2. And it is, as we said before the break, kind of a must-win game for the Nashville Predators. You don't want to go down 2-0 to the Vancouver Canucks, as good of a team as they've been this year. So what are some things that the Nashville Predators need to do to make that happen? Let's talk about key number 1, something that Luke Schenn mentioned in his soundbite earlier in the show, and that's keep things simple. Look, you look at the stats from Game 1, and it was not a big night for people who love fast-paced offensive hockey. Vancouver had the shot advantage, Nashville had the shot advantage, 22-21. That is a very low shooting event. And it's something we're kind of used to because Vancouver is very stingy when it comes to giving up shots. They're sixth in the NHL in terms of defense, in terms of chances allowed per game. And they also don't take a lot of shots either. They were in the bottom 7 in the league in terms of shots on goal this season, but they were 6th in scoring, which tells you they go for efficiency more than they go for pure volume. For the Nashville Predators, you may have to flip that script a little bit. You may have to go for some pure volume in this game. Look, we saw a lot of chances the last game, especially on that second and third power play. The one where they had a minute and a half of sustained zone pressure and didn't have a shot on net. First off, credit Vancouver's defense because that defensive core is really good. The additions of Ian Cole, Carson Soucy, of course, Tyler Myers has been there. Those guys kind of remind me a little bit of Vegas last year, where they just had those big hulking defensemen that didn't give up a lot of space, made it really difficult to find lanes to the net. And we're just kind of, a hunkered down defense that made it really hard to move around or get space, which is the Nashville Predators game. For Nashville Predators, maybe take advantage of that and just get some pucks on net. You don't have to look this super sexy backdoor play where you go down low and then throw it down high and then go it over, across into the slot for a one-timer or anything like that. Just get pucks on net, have Roman Josi launch one from the point, have some guys in front of the net, try to get rebounds, try to get deflections, try to get a stick on it. To me, maybe that opens things up a little bit more for the Nashville Predators. Maybe you have more chances. Maybe you make Thatcher Demko work a little bit harder. Maybe you have to make the defense react. Even if they get a block shot, maybe it ricochets to somebody, on the Preds, and now you have a defender who's out of position. Maybe Demko's tracking the puck. It gets, it gets deflected. It gets, bounced, and you have a second chance opportunity on a pretty wide open net against a prone goaltender. Sometimes just making those simple plays can help you in a game. And Vancouver's a team that does the simple things really well. They're very patient with the puck. They don't turn the puck over a lot. So if you're the Nashville Predators, just get something on net. Just get some chances on net and see where that takes you in this game. The second key for the Nashville Predators tonight, it's no surprise, but the Nashville Predators need more from their top line in this one. Hockey Stat Cards on Twitter, who they do the game score cards for every single game. They use data from Dom Luszczyszyn and Natural Stat Trick. They put up the game cards for game 1 for the Nashville Predators. And it's tough to see the players in the bottom half of this game. Philip Forsberg way down towards the bottom. Ryan O'Reilly, negative impact on offense despite scoring that power play goal. Gustav Nyquist, not a great score. Some of the middle guys like Tommy Novak, not a great score. So for the Nashville Predators, they need that top line, really the top two lines to get going in this game. I did think Vancouver did a really good job shutting that top line down in round 1. They had a couple different combinations out there. They rolled out the Elias Lindholm, Dakota Joshua line at times. We know Elias Lindholm is a really good two-way forward. Sometimes they put the big guns out there against them. Elias Pettersson went head-to-head with Ryan O'Reilly and Forsberg a couple of times. They did a really good job, I think, of taking Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist, other than O'Reilly's power play goal, really out of the equation for most of the game. It just never really looked like they were pressing all that hard. You need to get those three in particular on the ice going at 100% tonight. Like, you need them to sort of lead the charge in terms of generating chances for the Nashville Predators. They're the reason the Preds are here. They're the reason the Predators were a top 10 team in scoring this year, especially down the stretch, one of the hottest teams down the stretch. It was because that line was doing absolutely gangbusters. And so for the Nashville Predators to have a chance, you kind of need those three to sort of lead the charge tonight. And Roman Josi included. Roman Josi did not have a good game defensively this last game. I thought he did a pretty good job as quarterback of the power play, getting that sustained pressure. They just need to take more chances, be a little bit more aggressive, and win some of those matchups against whoever Vancouver puts out against them. Key number 3, it's also something that we talked about earlier this game, but that Vancouver crowd, boy, they became the MVP, I think, in the second half of that game. When Vancouver tied it, when they got on the board, boy, that crowd was loud. They were tough to play in. And if you're the Nashville Predators, you want to take that out early. You want to go up early in this game tonight. Go up 1-0, within the first 5 minutes or so. Go up 2-0 within the next 10 minutes or so. Basically, make it a little bit harder for the crowd to get back in the game. Build yourself a buffer early. So even if the Canucks come back and make it, instead of 2-0, they make it 2-1, that crowd's going to pop. That crowd's going to get back into it. But now you have a little bit of a buffer, and maybe you can turn to surviving sort of that next push a little bit more. I guess you didn't do that in that 12 seconds last game, but you can do it in this game if you really try hard enough. But yeah, that Vancouver crowd, it's a difference maker. They're loud. You can tell the Canucks are a team that really feed off that energy. So if you're the Nashville Predators, shut them up. Take that crowd out of it. That's going to be a big key tonight. And it's not, it's not rocket science. It's just, hey, try to get some goals early. If Vancouver scores, make sure you respond relatively quick to take that crowd back out of it. Do what you can to make the crowd a little bit upset, make them a little bit lackadaisical. And if you can do that, I think the Nashville Predators have a better chance of being able to keep momentum throughout this game as it goes on. Nashville Predators, of course, aren't the only team in the postseason this year. Every series has played their first game so far, and we have had a couple of surprises across the NHL this season so far. So we're going to look at some of the other series coming up here in just 1 second. First, though, want to mention today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As we mentioned, playoff time in the NBA and NHL, baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Again, that's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slam dunks to slap shots to home runs, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Also want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. Guys, we all know life insurance is an important safety net for our families, but trying to find the right policy on our own can be time-consuming, overwhelming, and a little bit confusing. That's where Policy Genius comes in. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies starting at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams so you can get your coverage fast. Policy Genius helps you compare options from other top companies, and their team of licensed experts are always on hand to help you talk through it. You can talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step, and they'll help you easily compare quotes for America's top insurance with just a few clicks so you can make sure you're getting your lowest price. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in our description to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could save. Again, that's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. All right, let's take a look at some of the other playoff series happening right now across the NHL, because we have had a few surprises so far in this league. The big surprise to me, and maybe it's not that much of a surprise, but the Dallas Stars, a team that I picked to win the Stanley Cup this year, down 1-0 to the Vegas Golden Knights. And the big surprise was Jake Ottinger did not look that good in that game last night. Now, granted, this is a tough series for Dallas because Vegas is the defending Stanley Cup champions, and they're getting back just, Mark Stone, their team captain, who, through the miracle of modern science, happened to heal from his injury the exact day the Stanley Cup playoffs started. Wink, wink. The Canucks kind of faded down the stretch because of injuries. Now those same people are healthy. They're the same people that helped them win the Cup this year. So it's going to be a tough series for Dallas, but I really thought that Jake Ottinger was going to step up and be better, especially because I did not think Logan Thompson looked good at all in that game. And I think if Dallas puts more pressure on, then this could be a series in which it goes the other way. But, Vegas going up 1-0 on Dallas, who, again, I think might be the Stanley Cup favorites this year, that's a little bit of a surprise. Speaking of surprise and speaking of goaltending, Winnipeg versus Colorado. Who had a 7-6 game on your scorecard for game one, and a game featuring Connor Hellebuyck, maybe the best goalie in the NHL this year. 7-6, the final score. I was on Locked On NHL with Seth Topol this morning. We talked about the series. This is a big missed opportunity for the Colorado Avalanche, because how many times are you going to put 6 goals on Connor Hellebuyck? Connor Hellebuyck is, as we mentioned, maybe the best goalie in the NHL this year. Probably should get some heart consideration for how well Winnipeg has played and how well he's played this year. You're not going to get as good as that Colorado offense is, as much of a juggernaut as they are. I don't think you're putting 6 goals past Connor Hellebuyck again. And this was your chance. This was your chance to strike first. It's just Alexander Georgiev could not get any sort of semblance of good goaltending in the other end. And I think if you're Colorado, you like the way you played, but this is also a huge missed opportunity. So I expect the goaltending on Winnipeg to go up a little bit in this series. And I expect the Jets with that 1-0 lead. That's going to be a big advantage for them. How is Colorado going to respond in this game? That's going to be a key one. Edmonton versus the Kings, part 3. Third year in a row these two teams have played. For the love of God, Gary Bettman, please change the playoff format. If you saw this game last night, absolutely crazy. It looked like the Oilers were just going to run ramshot all over the Kings. They went up 4-0 halfway through the second period. Oh, and then the Kings made it interesting. They scored 2 quick goals to make it 4-2. They started really pushing in the third period. Edmonton made it 6-2. We were like, okay. Edmonton's blown it wide open again. Then the Kings came rearing back again. And so this game, I think, is, sort of proves that this is going to be a closer series than a lot of people thought. LA, I think a lot of people thought maybe we're in contention for the worst team in the postseason, not like stats wise, but just how well they've played down the stretch. Their play down the stretch combined with, the other teams in the playoffs this year. I think it was them and Islanders are probably in contention. So I think that this shows that the Kings do have some more fight in them. And I also think that, boy, those confidence issues, that killer instinct sort of question mark that's plagued the Oilers over the past few years, that's still alive and well. In the East, I really love some of these series going on the East. First off, New York Islanders. Number 1, how did you blow that lead? Number 2, how did you only get 12 shots on goal against the Carolina Hurricanes? The Hurricanes are up 2-0 in that series. I just haven't seen anything from the Islanders other than Ilya Sorokin that gives me any sort of semblance that they're in this series. They're going to have a chance on home ice for Sorokin to steal one, but at this point, that's what it's going to be. Sorokin's going to have to steal a game or two to keep them in it. Otherwise, Carolina is playing like this is going to be a sweep. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Rangers, Capitals, same thing. Like it just feels like the Rangers are a step ahead of the Capitals at this point, even though the Capitals have done really, really well down the stretch, have completely sort of reshaped the narrative of the season. Excuse me. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Boston, Toronto, no surprise there. That's an absolutely banger. Toronto, big response last night, even though they almost blew it. But I think you showed that that's going to be a tough series. It's been physical, just like everybody thought it would be. That one's going to get spicy as well. And then the Battle of Florida. Florida versus Tampa Bay, I think, is maybe the most fun matchup of the Stanley Cup Finals, just because there's sort of that built-in rivalry there. And I also think in terms of talent, these two teams are probably the closest. Florida, of course, is I think the top team. I think Tampa has proven that they, with all of their cup players, are still in it, are still a juggernaut, are still a threat, and they've played really well down the stretch. I think that is as evenly matched of the two teams that you could get in this postseason. So it's going to be really fascinating to watch them down the stretch. Of course, the big one, Predators versus Canucks. Game 2 will be tonight. And we'll have your recap tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for that. And we'll break down the one word to describe the game, plus all the storylines and twists and turns that happened there. So stay tuned. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.